Presence, Bringing Your Boldest Self to Your Biggest Challenges by CUDDY, Little Brown. The opposite of powerlessness must be power, right? In a sense, that's true, but it's not quite that simple. The research I've been doing for years now joins a large body of inquiry into a quality I call presence. Presence stems from believing in and trusting yourself, your real, honest feelings, values, and abilities. That's important because if you don't trust yourself, how can others trust you? Whether we are talking in front of 2 people or 5,000, interviewing for a job, negotiating for a raise, or pitching a business idea to potential investors, speaking up for ourselves or speaking up for someone else, we all face daunting moments that must be met with poise if we want to feel good about ourselves and make progress in our lives. Presence gives us the power to rise to these moments. CUDDY from Presence. Presence, as I mean it throughout these pages, is the state of being attuned to and able to comfortably express our true thoughts, feelings, values, and potential. That's it. It is not a permanent, transcendent mode of being. It comes and goes. It is a moment-to-moment phenomenon. Presence emerges when we feel personally powerful, which allows us to be acutely attuned to our most sincere selves. In this psychological state, we are able to maintain presence even in the very stressful situations that typically make us feel distracted and powerless. When we feel present, our speech, facial expressions, postures, and movements align. They synchronize and focus, and that internal convergence, that harmony, is palpable and resonant because it's real. It's what makes us compelling. We are no longer fighting ourselves. We are being ourselves. Our search for presence isn't about finding charisma or extroversion or carefully managing the impression we're making on other people. It's about the honest, powerful connection that we create internally with ourselves. Presence equals the state of being attuned to and able to comfortably express our true thoughts, feelings, values, and potential. Self-affirmation theory. The kind of self-affirmation I'm talking about, the kind whose effects Steele and others have studied, doesn't have anything to do with reciting generic one-liners in the mirror, nor does it involve boasting or self-aggrandizement. Instead, it's about reminding ourselves what matters most to us and, by extension, who we are. In effect, it's a way of grounding ourselves in the truth of our own stories. It makes us feel less dependent on the approval of others and even more comfortable with their disapproval, if that's what we get. Self-affirmation is a big idea. That's how it works. In each challenging situation, we nudge ourselves. We encourage ourselves to feel a little more courageous, to act a bit more boldly, to step outside the walls of our own fear, anxiety, and powerlessness, to be a bit more present, and incrementally, over time, we end up where we want to be, even if we couldn't have said where that was when we started. CUDDY. Priming, nudges in your personal power. Recall a moment when you felt personally powerful, a time when you felt fully in control of your own psychological state, when you had the confidence to act based on your boldest, most sincere self, with the sense that your actions would be effective. Maybe it was at work, at school, at home, or in some other part of your life. Take a few minutes right now to remember and reflect on that experience of your personal power, on how it felt. It felt good, right? Whether you know it or not, you've just been primed. Thanks to that little exercise, your psychological state was, and likely still is, infused with feelings of confidence and strength. I could just have easily asked you to remember a time when you felt powerless and stress-ridden, but of course I don't want to bring you down. Had you done that, however, it, too, would have changed your psychological state, at least temporarily, for the worse. That unhappy sensation of being at someone's mercy would have come flooding back into the hidden recesses of your brain. First, know this. We can be either powerful or powerless. When we're powerful, we approach challenges. We dare to express our boldest selves. When we're powerless, we avoid challenges. We shrink from life and fail to dare greatly. Power is an essential component to presence, and helping us more and more consistently cultivate our personal power is a huge part of what this book is all about. Now, let's talk about priming. Did you know that researchers can quickly prime you to be either more or less powerful and then watch you perform either more or less powerfully. It's nuts. Little things like having us recall a powerful moment, or assigning us to a role of either boss or employee, or even flashing words associated with power, versus those without elicit more or less power from us in subsequent behaviors. Short story. When you're primed into a state of powerlessness, you significantly underperform those who are primed into power on basically every test imaginable. Most importantly, we need to know that we're priming and nudging ourselves all day every day. The good news is that we can become master primers and cultivate our power via little self-nudges, via both our mind and our bodies. Mindset-wise, how do you prime yourself all day long? Are you reminding yourself of all the times you were powerfully awesome, or all the times you were powerless? Science says it matters. Focus on your values to create more power. Recall your greatest moments if you want to create more of them. Expand your body to expand your power. As scientists, the first thing we needed was a clear hypothesis. This was our thinking. If nonverbal expressions of power are so hardwired that we instinctively throw our arms up in a V when we win a race, regardless of cultural background, gender, or whether we've seen anyone else do it, and if William James was right that our emotions are as much a result as they are a cause of our physical expressions, then what would happen if we adopt expansive postures even when we are feeling powerless? Since we naturally expand our bodies when we feel powerful, do we also naturally feel powerful when we expand our bodies? In our sample of women and men, the high power poses showed a 19% increase in testosterone and a 25% decrease in cortisol. No power poses showed the opposite pattern, a 10% decrease in testosterone and a 17% increase in cortisol, the exact pattern we predicted. That pattern is known as the dual hormone hypothesis. High testosterone plus low cortisol equals high power. Low testosterone plus high cortisol equals low power. IHUNCHING. As expected, device size significantly affected whether subjects felt comfortable seeking out the experimenter in the 10 minutes before the experimenter returned. Only 50% of the smartphone users came out to tell experimenters they wanted to leave. By contrast, 94% of the desktop users went to fetch the experimenter. The bigger the device, the more likely subjects were to assert themselves. In fact, not only were the big device users more likely to interrupt, those who did interrupt did so sooner. We concluded that the smaller the device, the more we must contract our bodies to use it, and the more time we spend in these shrunken, inward postures, the more powerless we feel. Our findings uncover a cruel irony. While many of us spend hours every day working on small, mobile devices, often with the goal of increasing our productivity and efficiency, interacting with these tiny objects, even for short periods of time, might reduce assertiveness, potentially undermining our productivity and efficiency. If you must spend long stretches in front of a screen, which many of us do, be sure to choose a device carefully and configure your space to allow for the most upright and expansive posture. I quote him excited. As most of us know, stage fright can feel like a paralyzing overdose of anxiety. And what do people tell us to do when we're anxious? They tell us, with good intentions, to calm down. As it turns out, that might just be the very worst thing they can say. You see, anxiety is what psychologists describe as a high arousal emotion. As I've explained, when we're anxious, we occupy a heightened state of psychological vigilance. We're hyper-alert. Our hearts race. We break out into a sweat. Our cortisol may spike. All of these reactions are controlled automatically by our nervous system, and it's virtually impossible for most people to shut off that kind of automatic arousal, to abruptly de-escalate it. Not only can we not calm it down, but when someone tells us to calm down, it also reminds us of how calm we are not, which stokes our anxiety even more. But there's another high arousal emotion that's not so negative. In fact, it's quite positive. Excitement. Brooks predicted that we may not be able to extinguish arousal, but we should be able to change the way we interpret it. So rather than fruitlessly trying to change the arousal level of our emotional states from high to low, what if we try to change them from negative to positive, from anxiety to excitement? The link between anxiety and self-absorption is bidirectional. They cause each other. In a review of more than 200 studies, Researchers concluded that the more self-focused we are, the more anxious and also the more depressed and generally negative we become. Amy Cuddy. Move like the best, boldest version of you. In the first month after my TED Talk posted, I heard from an Olympic swimming coach who explained how he'd been using a power posing type strategy with great success for years, encouraging some of his swimmers, beginning on the morning of the race, to physically behave as if they'd won their events. Swimmers, as he pointed out, are notorious for their use of dominant body language in the moments before races, not only to signal their power to their competitors but also to loosen their muscles and pump themselves up. Sometimes they will literally pound their chests like gorillas. But the approach this coach used, encouraging swimmers to adopt alpha nonverbal postures from the minute they wake up on race days, was most helpful to swimmers who'd been thrown off by a poor performance or who were feeling a wave of insecurity and self-doubt. The way you carry yourself is a source of personal power, the kind of power that is the key to presence. It's the key that allows you to unlock yourself, your abilities, your creativity, your courage, and even your generosity. It doesn't give you skills or talents you don't have. It helps you to share the ones you do have. It doesn't make you smarter or better informed. It makes you more resilient and open. It doesn't change who you are. It allows you to be who you are. Amy Cuddy.